Story time about how I beat up my stalker of 4 years. When I was 18, I booked a major campaign. I started modeling at the age of 10, and it was a really big deal for me. This happened in a country where women are not treated very well. When my campaign came out, there were billboards of me everywhere in the city. My face was plastered on the internet and on social media too. Now from this, my Instagram grew a lot. Overnight, I went from having 6,000 followers to 40,000 followers. So by the end of the week, I had almost 100,000 followers. Again, this was a huge deal for me, and I was really happy about it. But things started getting really weird when I started checking my DMs. I had about 40 DMs from one guy alone. The rest of the DMs were thirst traps, but this guy was different. He was becoming obsessive literally overnight. Every other message was about how beautiful I was and how he wanted to marry me. Instead of replying, I decided to ignore his messages. From this campaign, I started getting even more modeling jobs, and I also started getting paid to post stuff on Instagram. I was super happy. When I checked my DMs again, I noticed that he was messaging me even more. Once again, I ignored every single one of his messages. But after 4 days, he started getting really angry. Started commenting bitch on all of my pictures. Got to the point where I had to tell my modeling agency, and they just told me to ignore him too. A few days later, I opened his DMs only to see a picture of my house. Part 2 of how I beat up my stalker of 4 years. When I opened his DM, I saw that he sent me a picture of my own house, and this meant he knew where I lived. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I was sending me an Instagram. Once again, I told my modeling agency, and again, they told me to just ignore it. But it terrified me that he knew where I lived. Luckily, I lived in a really big apartment building, so I don't think he knew exactly what floor I lived on, but I took a chance and I sent him a message asking him politely to leave me alone. Believe it or not, this went on for 4 years. I would tell him to leave me alone, and he would just come back with more things to say. During those 4 years, I did travel a lot for modeling, so it didn't bother me that much. Not until I got pregnant. He actually sent me a picture of me pregnant. That's when he told me that I had betrayed him and that I was cheating on him. One day I'm at my apartment, and yes, I had already met a man at this time and we were engaged. My fiance was out at work. I decided to take some time off of modeling since I was pregnant. Suddenly I get a knock on my door. I opened the door to a stranger I had never seen before. Obviously at the time I didn't know it was my stalker because I didn't know what he looked like. That's when he hands me a package and he tells me that I must have left it downstairs. I told him I hadn't ordered anything, and then he asked if he could come in. I said no, but he pushed his way in. When he grabbed my hand and started begging for forgiveness. And he confessed that he had been sending me the messages for 4 years. Started yelling at him to leave, but he wouldn't. He tried to kiss my pregnant belly and asked me if it was his son. And that's when I just started kicking and punching him. And I didn't stop until he was out the door. When I looked at his face, he was bleeding and scratched all over. Neighbor had come out and had already called the cops, thank God. Cops arrested him and he was taken away. They were only able to hold him for 2 weeks. Apparently he had not broken any laws. This man is out there free. What should I do?
You will never believe what just happened to me. So I'm visiting home right now for the holidays, and I decided that today I want to go thrifting. You know, hit all my favorite spots. So I get into this thrift shop, I'm looking around, and I spot this beautiful Levi's jean jacket. It was in the men's section, but who cares? I make a beeline for the jacket. I go to grab the jacket, and some other guy's hands grab the jacket too. So we're like touching hands. I look up, and it's this beautiful, gorgeous man, okay? He looks about my age. Just a good-looking guy, okay? So we kind of just stared at each other for a second. Then all of a sudden, we started arguing about who saw the jacket first. And eventually, I gave up because I wanted to be nice, and I let him get the jacket. I watch him check out the jacket and leave. But then as I'm leaving, I see a bag hanging on the side of my car. It has the jacket in it. He left me this note with his number on it. I think I just had my Disney movie moment.
Today at work, I was trying to call my wife, but for some reason, my phone calls weren't getting through to her, so I used one of my coworkers' phones to dial my house number and call home. So I call home, and a sweet voice answers the phone. It's my daughter. I go, "Hey, cutie, how you doing?" She goes, "Hey, daddy, what's up?" And I go, "I'm just at work. What are you and mommy doing?" She says, "Well, I just finished lunch, and mommy's upstairs." I go, "Cutie, what's mommy doing upstairs?" She goes, "She's with Uncle Paul." And I go, "Uncle Paul? We don't have an Uncle Paul. What do you mean?" She's like, "Yeah, she's with Uncle Paul. They're upstairs in their room." So I'm like, "Cutie, that doesn't sound right. So what I want you to do is I want you to leave the phone on the kitchen table, go upstairs to your mommy's room and say, 'Hey, daddy just pulled in the driveway,' and tell me what happens, all right?" Did it, and like a minute later, she comes back and picks up the phone and goes, "Okay, daddy, I did it." And I go, "Okay, what happened?" She goes, "Well, mommy came running out of her room naked, and she tripped down the stairs and bumped her head, and now she can't get up." So I was like, "What about the other guy?" And she goes, "Well, Uncle Paul tried to jump out of the window into the pool, but he missed and hit the floor. Now he won't wake up." So I was like, "We don't have a pool." Then I look at the phone number and I was like, "Oh, sorry, wrong number."
Story time about how my dad got caught being a drug dealer. So I was in 2nd grade. My parents were in a pretty stable relationship. My mum was a nurse's aide, doing really well for herself and providing for our family. My dad, on the other hand, was jobless. Also, I thought, so one day my dad was taking me and my little brother to kindergarten. My brother was in kindergarten. I was at big school. and we decided to stop at McDonald's drive-thru for some breakfast. My dad opens the middle compartment of his truck to grab some money, and I see a little baggie of green stuff. I was like 8 years old. I had no idea what it was. I didn't question it. I just sort of let it be. I was so young, I didn't think anything of it. Until we got stuck in traffic and my dad was starting to get really mad. He was honking his horn to get people out of his way because he just wanted to get off. Clearly he had clocked on before I had. I looked back and there was a cop car behind. I have feared cop cars all my life. So I was actually petrified as it was, and on top of that my dad was going crazy. No wonder my dad was so keen to get out of this traffic. But we was pulled up on the side, and next minute you know, the cop car comes behind us, grabs my dad out of the car, pushes him against the car, and then hits him and punches him. I was screaming, I was crying. My dad was taken away and chucked into the cop car. It all happened so fast, and me and my brother were left behind. I don't know why they left us there, but we was legit by ourselves. I'm now 14, and only 2 years ago did I realise that my dad is actually a felon, and he was arrested on drug charges.
Am I the asshole for refusing to give my daughter her room back? I'm a father of two, Natalie, age 24, and Jonathan, age 17. Jonathan had mobility issues throughout his childhood, and it got worse as he grew up. He became a full-time wheelchair user 2 years ago after he had a serious accident that left him in worse state than he was before. Natalie moved out for college at the age of 18 and then moved in with her now ex-boyfriend. Now, I need to mention that because Natalie is my oldest, she had the bigger room in the house. Jonathan had the smaller room, which was fine by him, but now it's different. With the major changes in his life and needing a wheelchair to move around, I have considered to move him into Natalie's old room that she hasn't used in years. I first called her to let her know, and she gave me the green light to go ahead and do what's best for her brother and make his life easier. I renovated it and added things in it to accommodate Jonathan's needs, and it cost money. Remember, this was almost 2 years ago. A few days ago, Natalie called saying she had a huge fight with her now ex-boyfriend after she caught him with someone and was staying at a hotel. We talked a little, and she asked me to empty her bedroom and move Jonathan back to his old room because she wanted hers back, and said it'd be cool if her mom and I prepare it for her when she moves in with us. I was taken aback completely. I said I can't move Jonathan out since he needs the room. I explained he needs the space to move freely, but she said it's her room no matter how many years she has been away from home. I called her unreasonable and reminded her that she said I could give the room to Jonathan, but she said she wants it and expects to have it back now. We went back and forth on this issue, and I refused to give it back to her. She threw a fit, saying I should be supporting her and giving her shelter in this hard time, and I replied, I know she's struggling and she's welcome to come, but the room was off limits. She got more upset, saying I was favoring Jonathan over her, and got my wife feeling guilty, saying she will be staying at the hotel until we tell her her room was ready for her, which I declined to do and said she could stay there then. This morning I found out my wife's been sending her money to pay for her hotel stay, and she's been telling the family I'm keeping her out of the house. In my defense, I told them Natalie wants the room, but Jonathan needs it, and I already spent the money to renovate it.
Am I the asshole for yelling at my husband's ex-girlfriend? My 28 female, husband 29 male, and I have been together for 4 years. We have 1 child, 2 female together. His ex 29 female has never gotten over their breakup even though it's been 5 years. Also, I met him around 6 months after they broke up. She went through a lot of lengths to break us up and absolutely lost it when we announced our engagement. She showed up to our wedding in a white dress, and we later found out it was because my mother-in-law invited her as a +1. I tried to ignore it and keep the peace until she tried to pour wine on my wedding dress. I lost it and kicked her out. We went no contact with the mother-in-law since that incident and only keep contact for our daughter. Am I the asshole for yelling at my husband's ex-girlfriend? His ex-girlfriend is still bitter about him breaking up with her, and she sometimes does things like follow me to the grocery store or follow us on date nights. This Thanksgiving, we had a dinner planned for close family and made the mistake of inviting mother-in-law. She brought his ex, and I tried to be polite and set up an extra spot at the table because I didn't want to be rude. Everything went well until my daughter woke from her nap before dinner and his ex raced to pick her up. She was saying things like, "Mama's here, baby, don't worry, Mama's here for you," and I felt very uncomfortable. I then attempted to take my daughter back, and she would not let go. She said I should let her have a few seconds from the life she had stolen from her. I saw red and told her she was out of line and needed to leave and not come back.